Okay, so I sent you a couple of questions. Let's just begin from there.
Yeah, the three questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
the first one is Rafa Nadal is playing in an unfamiliar condition for the first time in Paris. How much would it affect his performance? We saw after the first game, he was complaining
Yeah.
about the weather and the balls, how heavy and how
Right.
different it is. So, do you think this will affect his performance this time around in Paris?
Yeah, I think so. Let's not forget Rafa is someone who the psychological part of his game is, something he pays so much attention to. He likes to be in the right frame of mind. He likes to go into matches knowing that he has, that advantage, especially when he's on clay. And he doesn't feel quite like that in at the French Open. He feels like, one, as you said, the weather isn't quite, what he's used to. Usually, there's so much sun. It's different this time around. It's wet. It's almost going to rain every day. So I think, that's one worry for him. But then the balls as well. He's been clear about that. He's been clear about the fact that it's not the balls he wants to play with. The former balls, I think, by Wilson were faster,
Yeah.
lighter as well,
Mhm.
helped Nadal with his topspin, helped him, especially the defensive side of his game when he could. Defend the drop shots better as well. It's different this time, and we saw that in Rome. We saw him struggle a bit in Rome, especially with the conditions and the balls. The drop shots were better. So I think performance-wise, it will definitely affect it. It's a different conversation entirely. If he will win eventually, or if he'll be able to overcome it. But I don't think there's any doubt to the fact that it's a lot tougher for him this year than in previous years.
Yeah. So I was even thinking perhaps it was just on the first day that most of these athletes complained about the
Mm.
weather, and if you can see, it has gotten better. We've seen the sun come out like from the second day, and now today it was even much warmer than the usual days. So I think perhaps maybe Rafa will be okay in the end, but I am still skeptical.
Yeah, maybe he'll cope. Again, if there's anything we know about Rafa, it's the fact that he can always adapt to these conditions. He's a fighter.
Hmm.
He won't give up. He's going to find a way to get around it. But like I said earlier, he's also at a stage of his career where he wants a bit of comfort. He wants a bit of, the conditions that suit his game best.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised he's complaining. It's absolutely normal that he complains. I mean, even Djokovic is complaining. And you
Yeah.
could argue that the conditions suit Djokovic more than Nadal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think maybe Nadal can get around it.
Yeah. Now the second one is that for the first time, Nadal has won no competition prior to the Roland Garros. The last tournament that he won was way back in March at the Mexican Open, and now you know that this is not usually what happens. Before the Grand Slams, you would have seen Rafa Nadal scoop like two or three clay court titles. Will this affect his performance here? And do you think this is like a pointer to the fact that he may not win the Paris championship this time around?
Well, it did affect him in Rome, about 2 weeks ago. We saw him struggle a bit for fitness. He didn't have that usual rhythm, and he didn't have, his ability to answer different questions, sent by the opponent. That's one thing we know that would usually do. He has different solutions midway through games. He always finds a way to get around, different questions asked of him. But because of the lack of rhythm, because of the lack of match practice, a lot of people talk about Nadal. I haven't seen him train before, but then when they talk about Nadal, they talk about how training for the French Open is so difficult. He has to train, you're training maybe with the same person, and all, yes, the intensity is the same, yes, your desire is the same, but then when you're playing games, you're playing with different people, you have to adjust, you have to adapt. Even mid games, you have to find different solutions, and that's something is lost touch with a bit, in the last couple of months due to COVID. So I think that's a big problem for him as well. Last year he had a similar problem coming into Roland Garros when he was off as well for a while. When he
Mm-hmm.
came back, he lost a couple of tournaments. His first three tournaments, I think, he couldn't get to win, and then he won back to back just before Roland Garros, and that was a huge boost for him. Usually, would see, like you said, Nadal gets a couple of tournaments before Roland Garros. He likes to get into rhythm as far as the clay court season is concerned. I think there are about 5 or 6 tournaments that he
Mm-hmm.
plays in before Roland Garros, and he gets maybe two, maybe three, and sometimes five of these tournaments. This time around, just the one tournament, it was beaten by Diego Schwartzman, and it didn't look good.
That's all.
Schwartzman totally outclassed him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be a big problem for him as well. We saw that in the first round match, where he struggled a bit. He was broken a few times, even in the first set. Uh, I think he has to get into that rhythm as quickly as possible. He looked better today against McDonald. Looked slightly better. Had what 6-1, 6-love, and
Mm-hmm.
then 6-3. So yes, maybe he gets into that rhythm before he starts to play the tough matches. Luckily for him, Fatil, his side of his draw looks good. Some of the big guns that you'd have expected to, really trouble him on the side of the draw out already. So it looks like he has a decently or fairly okay passage up onto the quarterfinals, and maybe he could use those matches to get rhythm. But again, this is another problem for Rafa. We talked about the weather already, the balls already, but then the lack of match practice, the lack of that rhythm that would usually see him get into. Uh, he has so much stacked against him, really.
Yeah, and I hope for his own sake, those
And for my sake, too.
the odds against him will not count, and perhaps he will leave the 13th title in Paris. The last one is: do you share the skepticism, the same skepticism? Like myself, I must say that he might not win this year because if you look at it and the guys that are in the tournament right now, we've seen the
Right.
way Novak Djokovic, Novak Djokovic right now, I think his aim right now is to get another Grand Slam as quickly as possible. He was unable to do that
Mhm.
at the US Open.
Yeah, the US Open. Right.
Yeah, because he was disqualified in that one. We also have a couple of players that are actually doing well right now on the clay court. So, do you think Rafa Nadal will have it really difficult and he will not win it this time around? Do you share same skepticism?
I mean, last year I feared that I wasn't going to win. I really feared last year I wasn't going to win. I'd say, even for a huge Rafa Nadal fan, I was shocked that he got through eventually. Against Dominic team. I didn't expect he was going to be able to do it. This year it's a better team and possibly a worse Nadal. We're talking about a team who has now won a Grand Slam.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a lot more confidence. Nadal isn't in the best shape. So that's going to be a big challenge for Rafa Nadal this time around. We've talked about the balls already. We've talked about the weather. We've talked about all these challenges for Rafa. But the good thing for Rafa Nadal, and that's something we need to point at as well. His side of the draw looks decently good. I mean, I'm just taking a look at some of the guys on the side of the draw. Fabio Fognini was supposed to be a major challenge for him.
It was not
Fognini is out already.
yeah.
John Isner is out.
Mm-hmm.
Evans is out as well. These were some of the guys that you'd have thought,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll give him a decent fight. So
Mm-hmm.
as it stands, it's just qualifiers all the way, sort of, for him. Or unseeded players, more like unseeded players, definitely all the way up onto the quarterfinals. And then even in the quarterfinals, when you look at the side of the draw where he may get a tough opponent, we're talking about, Chechinato, we're talking about maybe Benoit Paire, we're talking about Zverev. I think that, he can use these guys to get into some rhythm before he
Yeah.
faces possibly Dominic Thiem or Stanislas Wawrinka, because those guys would trouble him.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I don't think this is about, downplaying his qualities, but like we said earlier, he's the kind of guy who wants to be in good rhythm.
Yeah.
If he's in rhythm, if he's playing well,
And
then
he's
you know
not
that he can beat.
injured.
Exactly, and he's not injured. You know that he can beat anybody in the world. But then when there are little injuries or there are these little issues, or maybe he's starting not to believe in himself as much, then there are holes in his game. So I think the good part for him is that the draw sort of favors him. I
Mm-hmm.
do share that skepticism. I think it's going to be tough for him, but the draw, it has something going for him. And as well, I'd like to see the matches of some of these other guys. Djokovic has
Yeah.
looked very good so far.
Very sharp.
uh, you know
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's looked very sharp in his two matches. I
Mm-hmm.
think Dominic Thiem as well has had two matches already. He's looked very good.
Yeah.
Those are the two guys that on paper you know that they would definitely trouble Rafa Nadal. Fortunately for him, a player like Daniel Medvedev is out already,
Mm-hmm.
so that helps him sort of. So yeah, those two guys, I'd like to see, how they progress, how they continue. Maybe they'll face these kind of challenges as well. Remember, Dominic Thiem, he spoke about the ball too. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
particularly like the ball
Everybody's
as well.
complaining about the balls, really. That it causes
Exactly,
injury to players in the long term. Yeah.
very very heavy. So there's that, and I'd like to see as well how these players adapt their game to the ball. Nadal
Mm-hmm.
especially, and it's well documented how his offensive shots are quite questionable, especially when it comes to playing the drop shots. Some of those really some shots that some other players find quite easy when it comes to
Yeah.
the offensive side of his game. He has to polish that up as well. I'd like to see him come to the net, quicker
More
and
frequently. Yeah.
more frequently as well. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
see him play the drop shots more frequently because those are adjustments to his game that
Yeah.
could be
Yeah. Just to
key at the
spicy
French
stuff.
Open.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
With the conditions right here, that would be those would be some of the adjustments that could help him and give him a little bit of an edge as well when he plays some of these guys.
Yeah. Now the last questions before I let you go.
Right.
If aside Rafa Nadal and of course Novak Djokovic, who are like the
Mhm.
favorites to win it, um, who else are you looking at outside these two to win the Grand Slam?
Maybe the
Mhm.
guy who reached the final in the last 2 years.
Oh,
Dominic
Dominic
Thiem. I mean,
Thiem,
I think that's
yeah.
very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looks like the next guy really. Um, and you know, just to digress a bit, with Roger Federer, missing the French Open and maybe getting as close as possible to his retirement. I mean, he doesn't have so
Yeah,
many years
sure,
left in him.
sure, sure.
Dominic Thiem may actually be the guy who will challenge Rafa Nadal and Djokovic, and he's showed that already. He's
Yeah.
gotten to the finals in the last two French Opens. He's won the US Open as well.
Mhm.
He had to do a lot to win that, by the way. So I feel like he's the guy. Yeah, I feel like it's Dominic Thiem. I
Yeah.
don't see enough consistency in
From
a lot of the other
Zverev,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, not
From Zverev,
Zverev,
yeah.
not Sissipas.
No.
You know,
And I also
maybe
think,
Rublev.
yeah,
Yeah, but
and I also think that Dominic Thiem over the years has also mastered the act on other surfaces, not just the clay court. I mean, he just
right.
won the US Open, which is a hard court. He's usually not so fantastic on it, but he has mastered it. And also at the Australian Open as well, where he has gotten to like maybe the quarterfinals and all of that. So
Right.
I think
I,
Dominic,
I mean, I've never totally bought the idea that he's uh, predominantly a clay court specialist. I don't think
I just think
I
he's
don't think
just an
like
all-round good player who keeps
exactly
working harder and harder and getting better by the season. I
exactly to
actually think
improve himself.
yeah, I think that's the kind of
Yeah.
player that he is. The likes of Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Zverev. Do I
They're
need
not
to
very
do,
they're not
do
very
I need to
consistent. I think.
mention
Yeah.
Nick Kyrgios?
No, 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 never mind, never mind. I mean, even if you look at Karen Kachanov and
Yeah,
some of the really young guys coming through, the problem has always been consistency.
yeah.
And if you can't show consistency at the highest level
Mm-hmm.
against the best players, we saw Zverev at the US Open, against Dominic Thiem. it just had to be more
Two
consistent.
sets
It just had
up.
to show up. It just had to show a little bit more fight, and he would have won, fairly easily. So yeah, that's it. And Dominic Thiem has it. I think he's won a Grand Slam already.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like he'll be the man. Watch out for Stan Wawrinka as well.
Yeah, he loves the Grand Slams, doesn't he? And
Loves the Grand Slam. So
he has done so well in the past at the Roland Garros.
Roland
So
Garros, yeah.
I'm
So
looking forward to it.
that's another guy.
Yeah,
I think he's in the same part of the draw as Dominic Thiem. Right, yeah, he is. So that'll
yeah.
be interesting as well. If both of them win their next matches, then they face
Face off
the fourth round. Yeah, so
as early as
that'll be
the fourth round.
interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank
So,
you so much, Deji, for coming on Fatil Chats. I hope next time when we call you, you will be here
yeah,
again.
sure, anytime.
Thank you so much. And all the best to Rafa Nadal on Friday, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
I need him to do me proud. I need this one more French Open. I really do. I do.
There's something about Rafa Nadal and Real Madrid. Their hunger for
Yeah,
titles, their hunger for title is insatiable.
yes, so we keep
Mhm.
going, man. We keep
Yeah.
going. Just keep going.
All
And
right
he's a
then.
Real Madrid fan too, so yeah,
Yeah,
good.
he is a great ambassador. Nice.
Yeah.
All right now. Thank you so much, Deji.